We are jumping into our first time, the attributes. Day one of this book. Already incredible content, already incredible questions being asked. So, Client Myrie, you want to kick it off? What do you got?
I'm here. Okay, so my question is, what is everyone's definition of an attribute? What is an attribute? What does that mean to everyone here?
Who wants to bring it right out of the content, chapter one, that we were supposed to have read?
If nobody wants to speak up, I'll speak
I
to
do.
that.
Go for it, Justin. You're first, and then I think Tom is going to be second, Ryan third. Go.
So I cannot read it out of the book because I did not get the book yet, but I did download the audio. I did listen to it. And attribute is like an instinct, a strength. It's something inherently within us. It's the way that we default react to a situation. So we can be trained to use scripts, tactics, etc. But the attributes are our natural ability to address the situation.
So, two things we really want to part with: skills, attributes, separate and distinct. We do a lot on skill training, every other book. This one is mindset training, every other book, which is a little more to those innate elements. Tom, what'd you have to add to that?
Well, I would say that attributes on page 5 are wired into our internal circuitry, always running in the background, dictating how we behave and react and perform. It's who we are in quick react in situations that come up.
It sounds like another term that we attribute to animals that says that is their instinct. That is their thing. Dogs, what do dogs do? They bite. What do snakes do? They bite. So it sounds like these things are something that we need to get into our psyche with such power that they become instinctual.
Well, that's the key of this, getting into the content, that when he opened up, he told 3 interesting stories of, being in a foreign country and the bus leaves you in a small little village where you don't speak the language, they don't speak your language, and you don't have anything, no cell phone, nothing. How do you show up in that moment? Or your child, your 5-year-old, gets on a bus, or on a subway in New York after you've said we're not going to go, and you see them leaving, and you and everybody else on the family's on the platform. How do you show up? And the third one, which Kim and I, Celeste and I, Justin and I got to share in 2020. The week COVID hit, on day 1, I was in one city and there was starting to be chatter. Day 2, I dropped in. There was a lot more chatter and some people didn't show. And day 3, we were together in Chicago, and that day the world was being locked down. And it was uncharted territory. And it was interesting in that room, some people's attributes, and I don't know what all 25 are now. We're going to get into those over the next 3 weeks. But some people's attributes were flight. That was their default position. Other people, it was to be open-minded. That may be one of these attributes that we study. Some people were challenging the authority. Other people were falling in line. It was really interesting to see. And here's what he says between page 4 and 5. You can't practice for moments like this. You can't learn any skills to navigate those first trembling moments. You show up as the authentic you. So as he talks in here, we all have attributes. We all have some or part of these attributes. And again, as the author described, think of it as a dimmer switch on the wall for these 25 that we're going to go through. We all have them. They're on, yet there's a slide of how much they're on. So like everybody in this room, I suspect, can challenge authority. I bet everybody else in this room can follow leadership when it's the right leadership. So there's two extremes on that same scale that we're going to be going through. Celeste, what do you have? And then Ryan.
I was searching on Google for the formal definition of an attribute. And I think this is really spot on. It says a quality or feature regarded as a characteristic or inherent part of someone or something. So an inherent part of someone. And then it goes on to say flexibility and mobility are the key attributes of our army. So when you consider what is your attribute, I don't know that you even know what your attributes are until they're called upon. And they just, because of who you are, they are who you are. I mean, they are how you show up. And I mean, it's nice to be able to say, well, this is my attribute. I don't know that and I'll use the example of the military, what they just used. And of course, I have the advantage of listening in on the second chapter, but I think there's a lot of skills. There are skills that some people have that they don't even think of as a skill because they think everyone has what they have. And I'll use Ryan as an example because he's easy to do. Great. I know he's former military, but his willingness to show up without thinking, oh, am I in a good mood? Or is it the right sunshine? Or, this breeze, is it going to affect me? I mean, I'm being really super ridiculous right this moment. But what I'm saying is his attribute has either been trained into him or he just is this person that he shows up to do the job and he doesn't think about it and he knows what's on the line. Is if he doesn't do that, then other effects are going to happen. So it's easier, I think, for him just to be who he is and show up.
Amen. And here's something I really want to make sure you guys take home, that we all have all of these at some level. We're just stronger on certain attributes than others naturally. And you're right, Celeste. It's how we truly show up. And Ryan's a great example of that. Couple items, though, from the content as we're doing this. Because this week, guys, my goal over this next 3 weeks actually is for you now to start being able to discover and label what you are in the way of scale on these attributes. Where you're strong, maybe where you're not so strong. Because as the author says, I'll put my glasses on so I can read. Consider attributes as neutral traits wired into us by both nature and nurture. They are neither moral failings nor superior accomplishments. Also, while attributes are part of everyone's circuitry, they're not immutable. They can be tweaked and modified. So over the next 3 weeks, as you discover maybe there's somewhere you desire to get better, we can now talk about a plan to have you working on that as we go forward. Ryan, what do you got?
So in the book, they talk about CQC, close quarter combat. Okay. This is about clearing out rooms when you're going through door to door in hostile territories and stuff like this. I had to go through specialized trainings similar to this with security forces when I was in the military, combat communications, and what the intangibles are. Okay, your skill set is as I also played college sports. You can measure your skills, your 40-yard dash time, your vertical jump. What they're trying to say with these attributes is what your resilience level is, what the level of like your grit, your determination, the want to, the never give upness. That's what they're trying, because the people that washed out may have been more physically dominant, may have been more able to bench press more, squat more, run faster, do things at a higher level, but they did not have that resiliency factor. They did not have the determination, the perseverance that they could take orders under pressure and be able to execute time and time again and be coachable through those stressful situations. So that's exactly what they're talking about in this chapter, and finding those attributes is, and being able to hone in on those things. How do you affect yourself when you're in a call with somebody that is demonstrative on the other side? Are you gonna be able to continue to ask questions, or are you gonna be rattled? Okay, all of these things are what they're looking for in terms of attributes of how are you going to bounce back. Did you have a bad day, or did you have a bad 5 minutes? Those are the factors that I'm guessing what we're going to get into farther and farther into this book, and understanding that and making it a priority for yourself to understand how to find it within yourself to hone in on those things, because your skill sets, everybody has a certain level of skills. I'm not the best when I'm talking face to face with on the phone with somebody, but face to face I'm more resilient, and I can handle that conversation better. But if someone comes at me very quickly, I don't respond very well, and I kind of shut down. But knowing those things and being able to tailor myself and get better at those things and understand them, that's what what the book is going to be talking about here shortly, I believe.
Absolutely. And one of the great things for me in leaning into this gives me a new way to define mindset. We talk all the time about mindset and this global term, and that success or failure, 90% of your success or failure is mindset. What's going on between the ears? Well, now we get to subsect that mindset piece into these attributes that we're going to have going forward. What else you guys have from the content? Justin, go. And Tom, you're right.
You saying about mindset, it reminds me of in NLP training, they talked about the different modalities, and some people like a dyslexia taking the wrong tools, like taking a kinesthetic tool to attempt to spell or write. And I think that this is going to be really cool, looking at what attributes we might lead with that may not be the correct one for the thing. The other thing I was thinking before you said that, going back to what Ryan and Celeste were talking about with the military references, you don't have to go back a whole 48 hours to see shots at the president. And I have some friends sent some stuff, memes or whatever, and they've got on video the one gal in the Secret Service. And I think misguidedly they looked at that as a feminine masculine thing, that this gal's reaction was not to cover up the president. It was to kind of duck and back up and look for her gun. I think that's an attribute, and that could be anyone, guy or girl or whatever. But there's video of it, and it's brutally obvious. That's exactly the thing that they were trying to weed out with that training in chapter 1.
Yeah, it's a great example, as we all saw that obviously this weekend. It's been a pretty intense weekend for everybody in the country, as we quickly saw attributes show up in never before experienced situations. Even though they trained the skills were trained over and over and over, the attributes didn't exist there for everyone. I'm sure in here, decisiveness is going to be an attribute. And as we learn what occurred, maybe someone along the chain of command or who had the authority didn't have that attribute of decisiveness. We're going to see lots of things come up in this. And by the way, here's a cool part that I want to make sure you guys are aware of before I go to Tom. We're talking a lot about ourselves and looking at the attributes in us. And here Justin pointed out seeing the attributes in others. I want you to absolutely be aware that going forward, this is something else in your emotional intelligence tool belt that you're going to have. As the author says, you can't manipulate the attributes in other people, but you can learn to recognize them, which is extremely helpful. If you want to understand human performance, yours and others, the first step is to understand these attributes. Tom, what do you got?
Well, I think it's going to be interesting to find out how this book progresses, in that attributes are nouns, and we tend to, I think there'll be people that fall into what they attribute something to. It's the same spelling, it's a different meaning. One's an adverb. What do you attribute X to? And what are your attributes? I'm authentic, I'm accountable, I'm Ryan and I'm awesome, or whatever. Sorry, I just see Ryan on the video. But anyway, I think it's going to be interesting to see if people start to really hone in on this being a noun, something that, or an adjective that describes them, versus an adverb, which is, a blame game. And that's what we always teach to not do. You accept responsibility and all that kind of stuff, but attribute the fault to myself, whatever. Anyway, so attribute, adverb, versus the attribute, which is an adjective. This is your English lesson of the day. Thank you so much.
Well, this also goes into our hiring. It very well may also go into how we choose who we get to work with. Historical hiring. I've been having this conversation with some other folks, business-wise, that I coach. Historical hiring is background, education, experience. What have you done? Where did you go to school? What jobs have you had? All of those details is how decisions are made to hire to see if you're a right fit for the job. All skill-based. And a lot of new hiring, including what I work on, is starting to figure out the attributes of the individual. Do they have the attributes to be successful in that role versus the skills to do the role? Do they have those innate natural elements that will make them flourish? And getting back into the content on page 12, as they were talking about the creation of the Navy SEALs Hell Week, which when it initially came out was week 1. The individual who put that together realized that he wasn't looking for recruits who knew how to do the job, but rather men who could do the job. The difference in that is a single word between how and could, and it's enormous. For all of you, you may discover as we go along in this, there's some things that you're not necessarily naturally wired for. One of my favorites when I get real estate agents who come through other companies where they've only been taught one way to lead gen, one way to find business. Well, it may not actually be in their attribute profile that that's an appropriate fit. Now, it doesn't mean we don't have to have conversations, guys. I'm going to tell you that right now. Every one of you gets paid in direct proportion to the number of conversations you have. It's finding out which conversation model is going to work best for you and your attributes. It may not be calling expireds every morning at 7:45. You just may not have the attributes for that. It may be instead going out and doing networking. It may be open houses. It may be events. Whatever it is, though, we've got to get you on, again, the attribute side to doing it at a high level. So there may be other attributes that we're going to be adjusting as we learn to define them better and then put some true effort into sliding that dimmer switch up a little bit. What else are you guys taking away?
I would say that, look at your job description of what you're doing too. So if I despise paperwork. So having somebody to do the paperwork for me, because I don't have the attention to detail to that level that I need. I would be a terrible closer in the way that title companies do business. I could not keep stuff in order the way that they do. It would drive me crazy. And I need to talk to a lot more people in a lot more arenas, and understanding the attributes that I need to be able to succeed. And along with your skill set is uh, what I'm guessing that this is going to enlighten a lot of people about. Understanding the difference between, like I said, resiliency, determination, your clear judgment, decisiveness. All of these different things can go into which jobs that you're going to be more focused on, and more able to take it to another level.
And what a great aha you're going to discover along this way. As Ryan pointed out, I suspect detail oriented is going to be one of the attributes. And so for Ryan and others I know, that's just not their sweet spot. So now when you realize there's an attribute that's not, there for you at a high level in your world, hiring to backfill that, leveraging that out, rather than, I got some people I know that are low on detailness, yet high on personal responsibility, if that winds up being one. I'll pull myself by my bootstraps. I'll do it. And they continue to falter rather than allowing, maybe adjusting that one down on that and adjusting the other for leverage. Who knows what we're going to discover on that. By the way, though, I want to add one other piece to this, because there may be times where you truly have to get detail oriented. So I'm going to move into the pilot world, because I love that space. Every single pilot that you're willing to get on an aircraft with them has to be detail oriented. And yet most of them are not. Like your fighter pilot guys come out of the military and wind up flying general aviation. They're not detail oriented. And so everything in that environment is checklist, step by step, item by item, element by element. So that's why with a lot of you guys that I'm coaching, I'm helping you build those checklists for every step of your business. So even if that's not your natural place, you now have a model to follow. What else you guys hearing?
Well, I just have to say, I think you probably hit it out of the park again. I'm already excited about the book just from the first chapter. So I think it'll be very fascinating for us to work through this.
Well, I will say I didn't hit this out of the park. Somebody in
Okay.
this room brought it to
Somebody
my
did.
attention. Miss Kim said, here's one. We should do this
Yay.
one.
Yay, Kim.
So I rely on you guys. One of my attributes is the ability to leverage the people around me for great things and have faith in all of them, whatever that looks like. And so here was Kim bringing something great to us. So Kim, that was gratitude for you from Judy, as well as me. So let's have another one, this follow-up, follow-through. Everybody who's got it right now.
For the rest of us.
We're going to get to you, Doug, in just a moment, and then I'll bounce back to Ryan. I want to see everybody hold the book up. Okay? So if you're not holding it up, I want you to go get it. We're going to follow the model, the checklist. Even if you're listening to it, and I love you audio guys, have the written as well, so you go back through and read it and highlight what matters, because the places I've spoken today and filled in, it's because I'm just going to my green and speaking. Doug, what do you got?
Well, I thought it was interesting about how he got to this, and that was he was sitting in front of a guy who was extremely skilled and talented, had all of the traits, the training was excellent in his past record, and yet he's flunking out. And anyway, he decides as he's talking with this guy, he realizes that he doesn't have the answers as to why this guy is failing. And he's not he realizes that there's something that he's not seeing, and he makes a decision to go and look at his roots all the way back to the beginning of his training and where it developed from. Sometimes we have to go back to the beginning to really figure out how we need to fix this. And that takes some courage right there, because now you're looking at a voluminous amount of information, but you're looking for one thing, and you're looking for what he calls it on, I think it's page 14. We didn't see it because we weren't looking with the right set of eyes. And I know you've referred to this several times previously, and we've seen this before. We have to get the right set of eyes on what we're doing to really get into the right stride, so that everything moves the way that it's supposed to. So I thought that was pretty ingenious on his point, to go back to his roots and start looking at the basic things.
You gotta look at the history. So a couple of things I want to add here as we wrap up the room today. There was a positive collateral effect, he says. Once we separated skill competence from attribute possession, we were able to spot the dark horses early. The guys who might not have been the most technically proficient, but had all of the attributes we were looking for. And also, guys, you want to understand why you just can't seem to prioritize or focus. Why do you always feel tense when circumstances change? Why can't you just get started on those goals of yours, or take it to the finish line once you do? Attributes are the place to start. So, guys, get this in your hands. Get it going. It is Monday. So today, I believe there is a Jeans Generals today, as I just canceled from 2 to 3, and then 3 to 5 right back here in the Renegades room. We will be making magic happen.